This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. So I just was looking at this poster, and I'm just going to start right there because it says, if you can't see it in the back, love has forgotten no one. And that is the core of what I'm going to talk about tonight. But I'm going to talk about it in a very different light than just a metaphysical or a spiritual light. I'm going to talk about it in terms of physics to start with. What I'm working with is a few different friends of mine who are physicists and some top thinkers, and many of you are familiar with some of them, and some of you may not have heard of them. But Mayan is one of them who lived long ago on this planet. He was actually a man. He lived 16,000 years ago, and in southern India there are many ancient records, documents that talk about the physics of creation and how this physics expresses itself and forms the physical universe, and how we can work with the physical universe to create a golden age, to create an age of harmony, which was once on this planet. So as we enter into this new cycle, we're bringing back ancient physics, ancient wisdoms that we once had on this planet, as well as infinite new potentials, because each one of us is an open doorway for all of the potentiality of the whole universe. The ancient physics that was taught by Mayan was actually worked with in the ancient time to build all of their civilizations. Everything they did was based on this physics. So I'm going to give you the foundations of that so you can understand it. It's very simple. A kid could understand it. And then from there, you'll be able to understand how it influences every aspect of our life. Okay, so the great architect of the universe created this grid pattern. It is the whole entire vacuum. We live in a vacuum. Physicists know that. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. What I'm making here is an 8x8 cube. Now this is a 2-dimensional rendition of a 3-dimensional activity. It's not exactly cube. My drawing is pretty off, but you can get the idea from what I'm doing here. So this will be 8x8, okay? And in the very center of this is what's, okay, first off, this is called the net by the Egyptians. Okay, the whole entire vacuum is a grid of this cube structure, okay? And it also fractals down into smaller cubes like this, and then smaller cubes like this, okay? So you have scales of this grid activity. From this point, I don't have another color pen, in the center, this is where source or cosmic consciousness or cosmic order or whatever you want to call what we call God enters into the physical realm. The unseen, infinite, invisible, unified field of pure potentiality enters into the physical and shoots out through this grid pattern. And it goes in, hits this boundary wall of the 8x8 cube, which in the Vedic terminology is called the Purusha Mandala. The Purusha Mandala is the foundation of the Vedic teachings. Everything relates to the Purusha Mandala. This is the foundational physics This is the grid out here in the vacuum. This is how source enters in. It shoots in, and then when it hits the boundary, it goes this way, 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 and to the back. So it's three-dimensional, but it's coming forward and back, going in 6 directions. Then it starts to spin, creating the swastika, and that is clockwise moving energy that brings infinite, invisible, unified field into the physical realm. It shoots in to the grid, and then as it hits the boundary, it forms an octagon. And then after it forms the octagon, it starts to spin and form a sphere. That is when we see it. We see it when it starts to spin. It's kind of like a fire spinner when they're spinning fire. You see the light coming off of that sphere. So everything in the physical creation appears to be spherical. The foundation of that physical creation is the cube. But everything expressing itself, because by the time we can see it or perceive it, it's spherical. Okay, so that's the basic foundation of that physics. And then what this is here, that is what is known as the portal, or the Bindu point in the Vedic tradition. They call it the Bindu point. I call it the soul because it's the portal to singularity. That's where you can actually touch the infinite, invisible singularity, or the soul of everything in creation. So in the human, the way they draw the human is they put the human in here, so that this is the solar plexus. I've got a really bad cube here. It's not really very square, but you get the idea. So this becomes your dantian, which is 2 inches below and behind your belly button. Now, all of the Taoist traditions and the Asian culture, the feng shui, all of that was actually, the foundations of it were from the Vedic text in India. The Tibetans also, their history all came from the Vedic text in India. Now, there's records throughout all of the ancient cultures of the planet that show that they used the same architecture, the same measurements as were used by the ancient Vedas. So this, what happens here when this source explodes in, out comes a wave, okay? That is a sound light wave. It is also consciousness, inseparable, sound, light, and consciousness, okay? So expressing into the physical world is sound, light, and every aspect of divinity, every aspect of consciousness. Entering into your dantian every moment, exploding into your being, and expressing itself throughout your whole structure. What we are is a boundary. Every explosion has to find a place to resonate from, okay? So all of the physical universe is a resonance chamber. And every physical expression becomes a resonance chamber, a boundary, creates that resonance, because as this explosion happens and it implodes and hits this boundary wall, it starts to generate a field, okay? It explodes out and implodes back in, just like your heart is pumping blood. This source energy is exploding into your body, exploding out and imploding back in, always coming back to this center, to the soul, becoming true again, exploding out, imploding in. So you're always circulating through source, infinite source energy every moment, exploding in and through your body. Okay, this is pure divine consciousness. This is infinite possibility. This is divine intelligence. This is perfection. This is total health. Everything that we imagine, everything that we can perceive through our limited consciousness is an aspect of this divine consciousness kind of filtering through our awareness. So once you realize that, then you know the true nature of your being. The true nature of your being is this soul that is the same soul that is in everything in the physical creation. You are connected through this divinity, through this portal, with everything in the physical creation. Okay? So that is why whenever you're there's some kind of out of balance or error appearing in your life, if you go back in to the soul, to that awareness, and you focus your attention on that, you're bringing your consciousness into alignment with the true nature of your being, which is total perfection and total cosmic order. You harmonize with everything else in the physical creation when you're in that field, when you're in that state of consciousness. It is an automatic harmonization that happens. It doesn't need to be a conscious thinking. It just needs to be a resting of your awareness in the true nature of your being, in that source energy. So in terms of how we're going to transform the planet with this awareness, which is coming back in full steam ahead, the quantum day physicists, a lot of them are correlating this ancient Vedic physics with their new physics theories. And Nassim Haramein, a lot of you have heard of him by now. He's one of them. He has been teaching people for many years now about this same explosion, implosion, creating the double torus, which is, what happens with this Vastu Purusha Mandala when you three-dimensional it. Libby's going to help me show that in a DVD pretty soon. So anyway, that physics is becoming it's coming back through many different people. There's a quantum day physicist who has figured out that this measurement that the Vedic text had of the sound light wave, which is called an anu in the Vedic tradition, it's 136 millionths of an inch. And that measurement is the same measurement that quantum day physicist has found is when energy turns to matter. So what they did in the ancient Vedic formulas is they would take 8 anus, because remember we're scaling in an 8 by 8 Purusha Mandala. So 8 anus equals the next measurement, which is called the chariot dust, which times 8 equals the next measurement, which times 8 equals the next measurement. So they're taking fractals, like we're seeing here, fractals of 8 times of that grid. And Nassim has an equation that shows that his equation is like, I'll just draw it. He's got energy over here, everything and matter here, and everything in the known physical universe plotted out with its ratio of how much energy to matter, okay? And as it turns out, everything from galaxies to atoms on up plots out on this line. And not only do they plot out on this line, but they plot out showing that scale of 8 times 8 times 8, in that it's approximately a phi ratio apart from each other, each scale. So he's going from atoms to, biology, and human biology is found right in the middle. So for some reason, we're able to perceive the smallest thing as the largest thing becomes apparent as well. So maybe our vision 200 years ago was only right here. But now we're able to perceive, but we're always in the center. Interesting. Nassim found that fact. So that's kind of the basic physics. Now, how we use that in our lives to bring back a harmonization on this planet is in many ways. Okay, in the ancient Vedic text, they teach language, music. All the instruments were tuned to these harmonic resonance patterns of these sound light waves. Okay, since everything is a resonance chamber, you start to understand why they made statues. Remember, the Catholics got rid of all the statues, don't have false idols or something like that. Well, that's because those statues were actually very powerful entities, because they create a resonance for source energy. Anytime you make a boundary wall, you are creating a cosmic portal for energy to enter and resonate in. This room right here, the minute they put the walls up, became a boundary for cosmic energy to resonate in. If you build a building or a structure to an exact harmonic, like you would tune a musical instrument, when you walk into that room or that building, then it's as though you've walked into a finely tuned orchestra playing a beautiful symphony. That is how it affects your DNA. That's how it affects your biology. We've been building our buildings in disharmonic resonance. And so our whole humanity has been dealing with disharmony all throughout ages. And so we need to go back to look and study what we knew once upon a time in terms of this physics, in terms of understanding the net. The masters of the net in the Egyptian text were those who understood how the physical creation operated, to the extent that they were able to then work with it and aid it and make beauty in the physical world. And that's the goal of bringing back this ancient wisdom of the Vedic traditions. I think I use the Vedic, it's found throughout many, many teachings. My teacher, one of my teachers, is Dr. Ganapati Stapati. He's an 81-year-old man from southern India who was brought up through a lineage of 2,000 years traceable of sacred architects in India. He's renowned by the Indian government. He designs their temples and their public government buildings and their schools and any other building that they need. He's teaching this ancient architecture and trying to bring it back. He's gone to many places on the planet, and for instance, many of you have heard of the Mayan culture in the Yucatan of Mexico, and one of the great Mayan teachers is Hunab. And Hunab and Dr. Ganapati got together a year ago, and Dr. Ganapati went to the Yucatan, and they went with a group of a scientist, a mathematician, and somebody to video and document their work. And they went to 5 different pyramids where Dr. Ganapati said, okay, just tell me one measurement, and I will give you every other measurement to show that our sciences are the same. And they did that with 5 pyramids without failure. He was accurate with every measurement. And as him and Hunab got acquainted with each other and spoke, they acknowledged that they both had the same great teacher who was the great Mayan, and that both of their sciences were born from the same great teacher. And Dr. Ganapati also went to Machu Picchu and did the same thing there, where he established that science that was used to build that great civilization was also the same science. And many of the measurements that have been found from ancient cultures are the same measurements that they use in the Vedic tradition. They still in India use this same system of measure, the 8x8 measure that I was explaining. So we can see that this knowledge and wisdom once was prevalent on this planet. According to the Vedas, 16,000 years ago, there was a golden age on this planet. Even the cities, the boundaries of the cities, the boundaries of the countries were all made to these harmonic measurements. So there was peace between the cities, peace between the countries. Dr. Ganapati did a work a few years ago where he was hired by the Indian government to bring peace to Sri Lanka because they had had a civil war for 40 years. He understood why they had a civil war. There was a great, I don't know if you know about India, but they have these amazing temples that are acres big. And the temples are built according to this Vastu science, the Vedic science. So one of these temples was built, and this, I guess they call him a sage, comes running out of the forest, and he's like, no, you can't put that door there. And there's this great huge temple. I don't want to waste paper, but my art is important. Okay, so here's this temple door, and this great temple that goes on up with Vastu measurements, you know, like this. And this is just the gate of the temple. It's like 40 stories high. And he thought that this door would focus too much energy from the whole many-acre temple out into the direction of Sri Lanka, and that it would cause an imbalance in the energetic field of Sri Lanka. And so Dr. Ganapati, well, they sealed, this is thousands of years ago, they sealed up that doorway because of this sage's words. And about 40 years ago, or 45 years ago, the Indian government was having so great of tourism coming through that they opened that doorway up. And that's when the whole dispute began in Sri Lanka. So Dr. Ganapati, what he did was he built a statue in Sri Lanka. And the statue, God only knows why, the man's brilliant, but it created such a resonance field that it was able to balance the energies coming from this way. Okay, so that is some of the possibilities that can be created with this work. You guys have all seen the crystal skulls. The reason those crystal skulls are so important, is because they also create a resonance chamber. And the crystal has the information of thousands of years of compressed sunlight or energy. And so it becomes an incredible resonance chamber for cosmic consciousness. Our skulls are designed to be a resonance chamber for divine consciousness. And at the center of our skull, we have the pineal gland, which is the master gland of the body. And it's activated through light coming through the portals of our eyes. So all of these things, you know, the Vedic traditions taught in yogas, in their yoga sutras, how the body operates, how the glands operate, which finger is what aspect of divinity. All of that stuff was understood at one time, and these are the wisdoms that are coming back so that we can utilize them to create a harmonic humanity on this planet once again. One of the big transformations that's happening at this time is that, well, you guys all know about 2012. You've heard all of this. But what's been happening is we've got this, this big portal here in the center of this galaxy, and I call this, well, the Mayan called this Hunab. And have you ever seen a picture of the Milky Way from the front side? It's quite lovely. It's just this big burst of light. And that I call the great central sun in the center. It's the largest portal of divine intelligence in this whole physical universe that we know of. I mean, there's other galaxies, but in our galaxy. And so this portal here, and we're like out here somewhere, we are crossing the equator or the event horizon of this great central sun, or Hunab. And as we do so, this portal comes through our sun and to our solar system, and it brings all of the information that that great being carries. All of these cosmic beings in this star systems are cosmic conscious beings. They're all great beings that are that are emanating different aspects of divinity and different aspects of consciousness. As we know, we are a micro of that macro. And so we have activation points in our body that are activated by all of those galactic beings at all times. We spin at the same frequency that they spin as long as we don't have blockages, okay? So this frequency that's coming through the portal of our sun is raising the frequency of our whole solar system. There is, scientists have seen that our sun has changed from a golden yellow sun to a white sun. And that was 5 or 6 years ago. They maybe put a blurb out about it, and then they couldn't figure out how that was possible, so they hid it away. But that has been one of the transformations that happen. All the solar flares, the sun activity over the past years, it's starting to subdue now. And my guidance is telling me that the reason that is because, like, have you ever been hit by a hurricane? The first part of that storm is the windy part. It's like the hardest part of the hurricane is at the front. And then as you go deeper into it, it's quieter and more peaceful. And what I think has happened here is that these solar flares all happened as we were entering in to this photon belt, or this this I call it the event horizon of the great central sun. Just that high frequency hit, and now that we're into it, it's starting to stabilize. Our sun is becoming, rather than getting more active as we go into this solar cycle, as scientists would have predicted, it's actually becoming more calm and stable and emanating a more calm, resonant light. So I think that rather than having what's the word that people, apocalyptic transition into our next phase, I believe that through the advancement of this conscious awareness in the physical realm of our whole entire solar system, that we will actually stabilize and become more in the frequency of our true nature, which is a very constant, calm, and peaceful resonance, okay? So I actually believe that our transition will become more and more beautiful and more peaceful and more calm as we go forward. So the whole thing about 2012, I'm just going to talk about some of the things I've heard. One of my teachers and my Pachamama, I call her, is Judith Lightfeather, and she's a scientist that I met pretty much when I met Nassim and Hiramanek and a few other, I'll talk to you about these teachers of mine. Judith is in charge of nanotechnology in this country. She has several websites where she guides and directs the nano movement in this country. She's one of the top physicists. She's been hired to write curriculum for physics in Europe and to guide some of the educational systems in physics. And some of the things, she doesn't always in her website talk about the spiritual things that we talk about, but she spent 7 years of her life in the Yucatan decoding the Mayan calendar. That was a work that was given to her by a Mayan shaman when she was in her 30s. She's now in her 60s. And she spent 7 years there under the guidance of her, not embodied, but out-of-bodied, I guess you'd call, a light being that works with her. His name is Taiwan 21. And Taiwan 21 guided her through the Yucatan and took her to all kinds of libraries and caves and timekeepers, all these different people, so that she could gain the little pieces of the puzzle that she needed to put together all of the Mayan calendars, which describe our relationship on this planet with the rest of the star beings and the galactic beings. Okay, and I believe there's 18 calendars. They're the most accurate calendars that astronomers have found to this day that describe our relationship and our cycles and our orbits with all of these great star beings. So she has put together and mapped out to the day our cycles with all of these movements, okay? And I don't understand them all. She's probably going to come here, and at some point I'll announce in a group email that she'll be giving a talk. It'll probably be within the next month. And she'll explain some of her understandings. But basically, what you want to know is that she does say that 2012 is a transitional time. She describes it as the actual date is May 21st, 2012, which is the completion of the third dimension consciousness. And then we advance into what most of us in this room are already operating in, which is fourth, fifth, and higher dimensional consciousness. Basically, I like to say there's really one consciousness, and that ultimate consciousness is the one. And through the portal of our soul, we have a deep understanding of that consciousness and how it resonates in our lives and creates beauty and helps us to be co-creators of this true cosmic heaven on earth that we're all creating together. So Judith basically, we'll do questions at the end. Judith basically says that transition will happen, and her and Simhar Main, and I was sitting at a table with them one day and talking about what that meant, and she described it as being part of this cycle that we're crossing the event horizon. And just in case you want to know what an event horizon is, when we go back to the Purusha Mandala, I'll just go back. You know, we had this explosion coming out like this. It actually, in a three-dimensional thing, it creates a double torus effect where we have this spin factor like this. Even though it appears spherical, there's a movement like a figure eight. Now you will remember that figure eight throughout a lot of ancient text as being an important aspect of the ancient wisdoms. And what's happening here is this is torque and spin. This is, you know, the pulse of time and space coming out from the portal of no time, space, unity, existence, entering into the physical creation and resonating through the Purusha Mandala, okay? So this double torus, okay, also creates an energetic field right here, which we call the equator, okay? So if this were the Earth right here, you would have the equator right at this level here, okay? Now in a human, you'll see it right here. This is the equator, and when you practice Qigong and Tai Chi, what you're doing is accentuating the boundaries of your auric field, of your resonating body, your light body resonating, and you're generating energy by accentuating these boundaries in this field. I've never studied Qigong, I just know that that's the principles behind it. So in terms of architecture, we will, you know, as I was saying before, we'll create all of our structures according to these harmonic resonance. And what that looks like is very specific. It's a very detailed and specific science. Dr. Ganapati, who's 81 years old, can walk into someone's home and measure a few measurements and ask you when you were born and tell you what's happening with your whole family. It's so very specific. And it has to do with understanding the Purusha Mandala, how earth, water, fire, and air, the elements are formed in the Purusha Mandala. They even understand how each element is formed as this sound light wave generates into the Purusha Mandala. There's a deep understanding that ties physics into chemistry, biology, and every other science, which had previously been disconnected and disjointed from each other. There was no cohesive understanding that unified the sciences. But in the Vedic sciences, it is all unified. all the sciences are understood by understanding the Purusha Mandala and the action and the movement of the source as it enters into the Purusha Mandala and creating resonance. So what that could look like is I could say, Aletha, you were born in
1954.
Okay, and your nakshatra, I don't know what your nakshatra is, but we'll just say, it's where the moon was when you were born. What star? It's portals, okay? Each singularity creates a portal to another. So let's say we've got the great central sun. I'll just pull up that picture again. We've got our great central sun here, and okay, let's say we're born from here. This is the true point of creation, right? Okay, we come through Sagittarius and all, maybe the Pleiades, and we gather our energy and our frequencies from all these different star beings, okay? They each have a different structure, a different wisdom, and a different energetic that they're giving you as you come through these portals, okay? And then you end up, oh, I'm born on planet Earth here, and I have gathered all these frequencies from these star beings. And the waveforms are what we're looking at, okay? The waveforms of each, because everything in the physical creation is movement. It's all sound light waves, it's waveforms and how they're formed and structured. Okay, so these waveform patterns we adopt as our physical makeup. This is the energy that I'm going to operate under in this lifetime. I just gathered it up, okay? And so what a Vedic scientist can do is look at your astrology, see what waveforms you were born under, measure your body to check and make sure that the measurement of your body matches that waveform, which it always does. And every body will measure differently, I can assure you. So they match the astrology with the measurement to know that your waveform is accurate. Then they generate a home for you using that waveform. Okay, so you now live in a home that is supporting your biology. It's resonating with the same divine frequency as your whole being is resonating with, okay? And now you're being completely supported by this home. Now, home is a very interesting concept. As we know from the studies of the secret life with plants, when you're away from your home, you still tether with your home, okay? So can you imagine tethering with a home that is truly energetically correct for you, that truly supports your cosmic intelligence, that truly supports your physical body in every way, okay? So all of a sudden you become a supported human being, supported by the whole entire structure of the universe, basically, because you've created a baby universe in that home for you. And now you're able to do your work with a lot more ease and grace. More of your true nature is able to be expressed because you're not fighting anymore. You're not having to close off your DNA. You're not having to shut off and close off because you're in this disharmonic field. Okay? So some of the things that do keep us from closing down are the things we want to change. And what we've been working with as a humanity is our thinking, okay? Because ultimately, consciousness is the key, okay? Remember, sound light waves are inseparable with consciousness. The true nature of our being is consciousness. The physical universe is created out of consciousness. It's born from consciousness. So when we align ourselves with the true consciousness of creation, then we are at that point emanating that consciousness, okay? Because wherever you put your awareness, you open a portal or a doorway for that to express itself in the physical creation. So when you're, I guess I'll mention this, Heart Math Institute did this, some of you already heard this, but they did a really valid and important research where they took 100 people who were very versed at expressing emotions and they had them experiencing negative emotions like anger, jealousy, and whatnot. And then they looked at their DNA, and they found that their DNA closed up and tightened up. And then they had those same people experiencing positive emotions like joy, happiness, love, abundance, whatever brought them into a blissful state. And their DNA started to spin, okay? Now, the reason that is because it's a natural built-in mechanism, because we are co-creators. And we do project into this alaya, as it's called by the Tibetans, this field, or the vacuum, Nassim Haramein would say. We're projecting and creating this physical reality through our consciousness, okay? So it's a natural mechanism when we experience a negative emotion for our DNA to clamp down and close off so that we don't create a negative experience, okay? And the same happens with positive emotions, where our DNA starts to spin. Judith and I have both seen in visions that our DNA, when it starts to spin, that little DNA coil actually forms a double torus as it's spinning. And it fills with light, okay? So if you think about how much DNA we have, I think Nassim said in one of his lectures, it wraps around the planet 40,000 times or something. It's some extreme amount of actual programs that we have that exemplify divine consciousness. So we do not have a limitation. There is no such thing as a limitation as to what we can express in our physical bodies, unless we choose to create one. So where we're heading as a humanity is to express the true nature of our being, which is divine consciousness, which is cosmic order, which is in harmony with every other thing in the physical creation. That's where you get your synchronicity and your, everything lining up perfectly throughout your day when you sit and meditate and you become aware of that oneness. It doesn't have to be a conscious activity. I actually believe that they say we use 5% of our brain. I believe that the other 95% of our brain is God conscious awareness creating in our field this beautiful unfoldment of the physical creation for our 5% awareness to experience. I think that every aspect of our DNA is always having these threads of light coming through from our source, from our soul, and exploding out into and through all of our DNA, spinning it, activating it, and creating this beautiful array of manifestations that we call our lives. So as we start to become aware of these support systems that we can have through the consciousness tools that we're all learning. Everyone on this planet is using consciousness tools, learning how to entrain their thoughts to positive thinking, learning how to, throw out those negative thoughts and reprogram themselves. Everyone is learning that on this planet. I don't care where you are. I don't care if you're in an illiterate country or a literate country, you're getting the point. And so I think it's a movement of the entire humanity toward consciousness, and we're breathing together as one humanity this awareness and this consciousness. It's actually being breathed through us, through this divine being here, which I call the Great Central Sun. So the other things are the supports that we're going to have through our architecture, through our music. There's people who are creating music, like Pythagoras had these schools, the music of the spheres, creating harmonics. There's tons of people working with sound light healing. There's a few of them in this room, actually. And there's all kinds of sciences that are being re-emerging that are going to support all of this new creation that we're bringing forward. And there's the pure potentiality of something brand new that we've never experienced before. We have no clue where we're going, and it's a wonderful place to be clueless, to just be completely open, to be, to have that faith of a child where you know that there's this great being that is completely watching over you and taking care of every aspect of your life, and that you can just go forward and be natural and be whole and not clamp down your DNA with fears. Okay, so that's basically the process that we're all going through. I wanted to talk just briefly, because I think I have 5 minutes left, about sun gazing, because let me see if I can pass this around. I have a teacher some of you may have met already. We've brought him to Ashland a few times. His name is Hiramanek. He's also from India. He's also studied the Vedas. And his job in his lifetime was to bring back an ancient teaching from the Vedas called sun gazing. It's a practice that was practiced by many ancient cultures and civilizations. And let's see. Will you do me a favor and see if you see his picture in there? If not, I have it on this. Yeah, just you can sort of see him there. That's him. Okay, so Hiramanek, if anybody wants to look closer later, you can. He's 74 or 5 years old. Until he was 50, he ran the largest shipping company in the world in India. You can pass that around. And if you can imagine running a shipping company in India where everything has to be on time. So I'm assuming the man was a master at age 50 already. You can see patience in his face. Then he decided in his retirement that his work would be to disclose how these saints of his teacher Mahavir and Yogananda spoke of one saint in his autobiography who lived on light. Saint Clare also lived on light. Here, you can pass that like that. Nassim's on the other side of that if you want to see him. Anyway, here's a good picture of Nassim. Yes. Anyway, so the practice of sun gazing is what he's disclosed to the world through his studies. He studied the Vedas and all these lives of these saints, and he came up with a practice that he tried on himself. And within 9 months, he found he lost his appetite and that he was able to photosynthesize all his needs from the sun directly through his eyes, through his skin, from the sun. So he was followed by NASA scientists, by medical scientists for, I think it was over a year, I can't remember the amount of days, kept in captivity. And what they found was that his pineal gland was twice the size of an average human, that he didn't need to eat. He did drink water because scientists believe you have to drink water, and he wanted to stay in the realm of science. Although many people who do live on light, which by the way, there are 40,000 people on this planet currently that do not eat food, that live on sunlight or prana. And prana is just the anus coming out of your solar, out of your dantian. That's the prana, okay? It's spinning in all of your DNA. It's the soul at the center of every atom that brings in the prana from the infinite, invisible, unified field, okay? So once you tap into that awareness, where you're aware of your soul, of your connectivity with the whole universe, then you start to bring that, it opens up a portal in you, and you start to live your life from that portal. And as it gets bigger and bigger, the more you tap into it, and the more you bring your awareness into it, many people are finding that they don't need to eat, that they get supercharged just from the prana. So Hira teaches this simple practice of sun gazing to accomplish it. Anyone can do it. It doesn't cost any money, and it's very simple. You just need to live somewhere where the sun shines a little bit. What you do is you stand barefoot on the earth, because there is, the earth is an energetic being. It's sound light waves moving, and it's a current that you're creating through your body, from your feet, through your body. And from looking at the sun, it's coming into the portals of your eyes, okay, and activating your pineal gland. And Hira says when your pineal gland is fully activated, that you can fly, and that there's actual records of people who fly. Now, the reason that is because you're activating the spin, okay? When you open up that portal, you're getting close to this explosion in the middle of the Purusha Mandala here. This is like God exploding into the physical, right? That is fully charged. It's what we call mana. And when it comes out here, out of this point, it's golden light. How are we doing time-wise? Are we okay? Okay, all right. So this activation gets your DNA spinning. Light is moving, okay? It's moving force energy. It gets your DNA spinning. Okay, imagine a frisbee. How does it stay off the ground? Why isn't it getting pulled back into the implosion of the earth? Explosion, implosion, creating gravity, right? The frisbee flies because of the torque, the spin. You get your DNA spinning, and your own spin becomes so much of itself, so potent of a spin or a torque that you defy gravity as well. And that's how people levitate. You've heard of lots of your friends probably levitating when they're meditating. I've had that experience, and other friends have. It's basically you're just activating your DNA. It's torqued up with light flowing through it, and you actually get yourself spinning. Your Jose Arguelles calls it your Merkaba or whatever, and so you're just able to defy gravity because your spin is so torqued up. So what you do is you stand barefoot on the ground, and you just look at the sun while it's rising or while it's setting. And the reason Hira Manek says to do it that way is because the atmosphere is filtering the UVs, okay? So you won't cause any damage to the eye. He is working with medical science and all kinds of scientists, and everything he teaches has to stay in the realm of science to be completely safe and harmless to people. So he teaches that you only look at the sun for the first hour after it rises and the last hour before it sets, when it's filtered through atmosphere. There's no UVs, okay? All you do is you simply gaze at the sun the first day for 10 seconds. Now what you're doing is you're just taking in the light of the sun, okay? That light that is information, it's consciousness, it's awareness, okay? And as it comes into your body, it activates all the little circuitry. You are a light being. You have a circuitry of light, okay? You could call it acupressure points, acupuncture meridians or whatever, but you've got this circuitry of light. And as you sun gaze, that light comes into your body and it starts to build neural pathways, okay, pathways of light, and it opens up the circuitry of your body. If you had any blocked DNA from emotional trauma or any kind of physical trauma, that light will go in and open up those blockages. It'll reactivate and re-entrain your DNA to torque and spin again. And Hippocrates said the free flow of energy through any system will bring that system back to order. So we can all, according to Hira, come back to any kind of health after 6 months of sun gazing. So what you're doing is you're starting with 10 seconds, the next day going to 20 seconds, the next day 30 seconds, the next day 40 seconds, and you're slowly building your neural connections of light through your body, okay, and activating those. There's tons of therapies out there that people are using, bioresonance and all kinds of machines, very sophisticated machines that do sound light healing, all of that. Well, guess what? They're all great and wonderful and they're all perfect, but the sun has it on them all. And I'll tell you why. Because the sun is connected, okay? It's connected to the great central sun. I wish I had a real picture of that. It's so gorgeous. It's connected here. It's channeling all the singularities, all the portals of all the great galactic star beings are all activated through the portal of our sun. And when we look at the sun, we are getting a full activation of everything that's going on in this galaxy, okay? And we are taking in that information. We are not necessarily consciously aware of all the cool stuff that goes on there, but we're taking it in, and it brings peace to us because that's the true nature of our being, and we need to resonate with that. Okay, we are a resonance chamber, and what we want to resonate with that brings us peace when we're resonating with it is the great central sun, okay, or any other great divine portal being that's activating cosmic consciousness to that extent. Okay, so the sun, we start to take in the sun, and after 1 month we're at 5 minutes of sun gazing. 2 months is 10 minutes. Every month that you sun gaze, you're advancing 5 more minutes. So by the time you're at 30 minutes, which is 6 months, Hira says that all disease leaves your body. And he has many, many, many testimonies of this, everything from warts and rashes to actually people who couldn't walk, who were paraplegic, getting up and walking. So we've got recorded testimonies of amazing things from people sun gazing. I've been sun gazing. I still eat. I eat mostly raw, but because I think that it holds the activated sun energy better in raw foods, so you're getting a little bit more of that vital solar energy. But I still eat, and you know, I use the sun. It's my source of cheerfulness and happiness and whatever. It just keeps me going, and it's my love, and it's the one that provides anything I want. I talk to the sun. It's my best friend. If I have a problem in my life, I just go to the sun, and it takes care of it. So it's an actual relationship. It's a deeper relationship than you can have with a human. I assure you of that, because this is a great being that does not need anything from you. It's just generating light for you constantly. And there is a feedback that happens. You know, as you adore the sun adores you. And it becomes a whole resonance that you're creating with this great divine being. So here it says that after 9 months, your appetite falls away naturally on its own, and you just live off of sunlight then. And from then forward, you don't need to sun gaze anymore. He says you just need to sunbathe 20 minutes in the day, or just take a walk barefoot on the earth, that just the earth resonance will keep you activated, okay? So he says for 45 minutes, I've walked with Hira for 45 minutes barefoot, and he chooses not to walk in the grass. He says the grass actually is a living being and will take energy from you. He walks on bare earth. And that's one of the little funny stories I have about him. So I think we're complete here, and pardon? It's break time, yeah. It's break time. And after the break, we'll come back, and if anybody has questions, we'll start to go after questions. Okay? So thank you. Okay. This is our question and answer period. Yes?
The overall concept and the general idea of what you're presenting, that is the connection between the cosmic levels of materiality and our physical materiality appearing here on Earth, and the connections in between. That is something I think is certainly realizable for people, and I accept the idea. But I wanted to bring up a couple of things that you had said.
Okay.
More on the minor aspect.
Okay.
One of them has to do with the galactic center.
Okay.
That the scientific community is coming to the conclusion that there is a black hole at the center of our galaxy. And of course, the solar masses that aggregate there, just as the matter that aggregated the creator planets in our solar system, get compressed there. But the definition for the event horizon in the physics realm has to do with the point at which all matter disappears into this black hole. Not just the one at the center of our galaxy, but other black holes that exist. Now, of course, the concept of an atmosphere, which would be different than, say, the concept of an event horizon, might be more appropriate to what you're saying, that the solar system is passing by a region that would be considered the atmosphere of the galactic center of influence. Just like the Earth is within the atmosphere of the sun, because there's all kinds of matter that is strewn out into our solar system.
Okay.
The outer planets are not part of that atmosphere.
Okay. So I'm gonna talk about some of the points you brought up. I sat with a group of NASA scientists, and I make these domes, and we do projection in them, and we have a projection that we worked with a group out of Switzerland, some scientists out of Switzerland, called Google Universe. And these NASA scientists were all sitting in there, and we were able to, they mapped out every known point in the physical universe. And we flew around. They took us out from the Earth and to the satellites. They flew us out from the solar system, and they showed us around a little here and there. And then they asked where we wanted to go. And I said, take us out so that we can see the front side of the Milky Way. And they flew us out, and we saw that beautiful spiral, with the great big white light in the center with all the spiraling out from it. And I said, because I was teasing them, I said, so what do they call that star? Well, I knew the answer they would give. Oh, that's not a star, that's a black hole. Well, actually, it's the same thing, because the explosion and the implosion are always the same. They're always in equal proportion. It's circulating through the portal, and Nassim Haramein proved that with equations. He published his theory, which is now accepted by all mainstream physicists in Europe. They've flocked over to Hawaii to study under him because his theories have proven solid and sound, and they're expressed throughout all the physical creation, as they can see. So basically, what we have at the center of that, at the galactic center, is actually a star and a black hole. We also are a star and a black hole. That's what a portal is, okay? We have a vortex coming out and a vortex going in. And I'm sure there's other little vortexes here and there that create spins, like the solar flares. Nassim actually says that that there's, if you draw that star thingy, remember that star thingy? Okay? At these points, there's something with the Purusha Mandala that when it starts to activate and spin, it creates this Star of David thingy. And this is a vortex in, this is a vortex or out, I don't know, which way, but these points here are where you're going to find all your energy spots. The volcanoes, the sunspots on the sun, the volcanoes on Mars, Earth, are found in these spots here. And that's an example, it's just a demonstration of his theories being valid, because you actually find these emulating throughout the physical universe. If you want to check out Nassim's work, his website, I'd be happy to. Have you checked out his work ever? He's cool. Here, you can just have this. It tells his website in a little bit.
I think that's a good explanation.
Okay, thank you. And then you brought up another thing about this event horizon. What Nassim calls the event horizon is the whole that whole thing. I actually just talked to him recently about the event horizon, because I was thinking in my mind that the event horizon was right here, was the, like the rings around Saturn or the planets rotating around the sun or the galactic arms of the great central sun, he said that this whole entire thing is the event horizon. That the whole explosion and energy flow
So this is essentially a somewhat different definition.
It's a different definition. Like he's really changing the view of physics, and it really correlates with the Vedic. He's blown away, like, because I've introduced him to the Vedic physics, and we've talked a lot about the correlations, and he's blown away by the Vedic physics. He's like, this is the most profound ancient text I've ever found, and he studies ancient texts all the time to extrapolate his theories. A lot of physicists do, just in case you didn't know that. But he's said that the Vedic text is the most profoundly accurate and detailed of any of the physics he's found in any ancient text. And we're just starting to get these translations. Now, Mayan wrote over 1 million verses that were found in the ancient temples of India, in southern India in 1980. They finally realized that these documents, that these scrolls that were in these temples were actually written by a man named Mayan. And Dr. Ganapati, who I hope will come here in a couple of weeks, was chosen as one of the main translators of this text because he understood the science from his lineage he had grown through. It's a very deep and detailed science, the physics of creation and how it creates the elements and all the planets, and it's like that's a profound physics to understand, and he uses it for architecture. That's his particular, and for sculpture. He's has a whole village of people that create sculptures for all of India, and he's taught, it's his school basically, this village. So he's a very active man, and yeah.
I did have a second area.
Okay.
I wanted clarification on astrophysics. That is the study of stars, and particularly our star, has developed to such a point, which admittedly has a lot more to learn, has studied the cycle of the sun that is called the approximately
11-year cycle.
Solar, it used to be called the sunspot cycle, but it's we're currently very close to being at solar minima, and the amount of magnetic or electronic energy change to our planet is very radically changed from solar minima to solar maxima. 7 of the last 8 solar maximas, which takes us back to prior to the Great Depression, have been extremely accentuated to a significant degree.
Far beyond anything we've ever experienced.
Beyond anything that had been measured previously, except for maybe one incident, and that was during the American Revolution. That there was anything even close to one of the 7 of the last 8 cycles.
Right.
And the next peak, or solar maxima, is in
2012. Yeah.
But you said something about how things were settling down.
Well,
currently predicting that 2012 is going.
Well, we'll see, won't we? Nobody knows how it's going to come, but I
it's
do.
More art than science, their prediction.
No, but I've also been following solar flares and the solar cycles and all of that, and and I talk to these physicists, and you're right. We've experienced greater solar flares, and like I said, I believe my feeling and my sense is that it was like coming into that arm of the great central sun, where you get your most action or your most electromagnetic static when you're entering this the field, right? So the sun was just flaring and going through all this stuff,
In other words, crossing the event
horizon, exactly, entering into it. And so that's my particular, we will see, I don't know, but I do know that Nassim also talks about the 2012 solar maximum, and he thinks that actually that Mars might implode because the as the sun is flaring, Okay, it's giving out these negative ions, and we're attracting them to all the great magnetic bodies, you know, the gravitational forces, the Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Jupiter being the biggest, is the poles, you know, we're talking about this point and this point, being the magnetic poles, pulling in those negative ions, and these poles get so hot, like when Soho went out there and was viewing Saturn, these poles on Saturn, they said, oh, Saturn has these auroras that never go away. Well, those are on fire. It's like hot spots on Saturn and Mars. Mars is so hot, they believe, because the gases are so much like the sun, that Mars could actually, Jupiter, that the gases are so much like the sun that Jupiter might implode if it gets much hotter. But we are in a solar minimum, and things have quieted down, and we're not getting the same, you know, the storms aren't as severe and all of that kind of stuff. What Nassim says is that these solar flares have bombarded the atmosphere of the planet and made it thinner. So we're actually losing more heat at night and gaining more heat in the day, making more extreme temperatures. Therefore, we have maybe colder nights, hotter days, maybe more wind, because the temperature extremes can create winds. And I think that we saw a lot of that happening over the last, you know, all the hurricane stuff, that activity that's been happening, and the volcanic activity. The Earth has been going through a heating up of the magma from these solar flares coming in here. You know, it's all one fluid body. I mean, when Sumatra went off, there's a well in Oregon that goes like this, and they know that when that well in Oregon starts bouncing, that there was a big earthquake, you know, somewhere on the planet. So, you know, that's how connected all the magmas are and all the fluids on the planet. It's one fluid being. And so, you know, as these frequencies come in here, and they're high frequency, you got to remember that, like, this is cosmic consciousness, it's divine intelligence, and it's completely knowing exactly the course that it's unfolding its manifestation. And I promise you that God would never hurt you. And that there's things going on this planet, and we are experiencing as a humanity some pretty, intense things. But ultimately, this birth that we're going through is a really beautiful experience. We don't know what we will become yet, but we can be assured that it's a very beautiful creation. And that's pretty much all I really wanted to say. So, does anybody else have a question?
I wanted to know more about the sungazing. So, like, you were saying that there's, like, so how does that, like, your top of your brain, like, it grows?
Through your eyes, your eyes are, you have neural connections from your eyes to your pineal gland in the center of your brain. That's what stimulates your pineal gland, is light, right? So that's why people who aren't able to be around much light, like in Alaska in the winter or whatever, their pineal gland, being the master gland, it's not getting activated enough, and the spin and the torque starts to slow down, and you quit resonating at that high capacity with your divine center, and you start feeling like crap. And so, the sun is vitally important. Like Hira says, if you live somewhere where there's not a lot of sun, buy an airplane ticket to the tropics and never return. That's how he is. He's cool. This man, Hira, is 74 years old, and he flies all over the earth. He's been in 50 countries this year. I know because I track him. I send him DVDs that we made here of a talk he gave, and that's how he sells the DVDs at his talk. So he lectures for free all over the world. He's 74 years old. He's always on the road. He doesn't eat. When he stayed with me, here, is there anything I can do for you? Oh no, I need nothing but the sun. He is a saint, and it's very incredible. And we all are. I mean, that's truly the true nature of all of our being, is we need nothing more than our source energy and our connection. And that's the truth of all of us, really, you know? So he's basically trying to get rid of the mystery, the secret. The secret's out, guys. No more secret. We can all do this. It's not a hidden mystery anymore. We can all accomplish our godhood here in this lifetime. And it's a pretty simple deal. It's not as complicated as they made it out to be.
I have a question about the sun gazing. We're kind of down in a valley, so when the sun comes up, it's actually a little bit higher than if you were at the horizon.
Me too.
Do we need to drive somewhere to elevate,
You
or-
can, and here's another trick you can do. You get behind a tree that's filtering out. So you just don't want to hurt your eyes. So what feels comfortable? If you look away and you see spots, it's a little overwhelming. So you just want to be gentle and let your nervous system build slowly. The Tibetan monks, they do a thing where they'll do 4 hours in the middle of the day. And they still practice this. This is one of their secret practices they don't tell anybody about unless you're in the higher orders, right? They'll sit and meditate for 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the day, but they don't look directly at the sun. They look at something else that's reflecting sunlight in a more gentle way.
Sunlight passes through your eyelids.
Yeah, exactly. So you can close your eyes. And you know, it's a known fact that, okay, the first time I taught sun gazing, or I brought Hira here and he taught sun gazing, there was a little family that had been on manic depressant drugs for years. And it was like teenagers, a young adult, and two parents. And the whole family of 5 within 2 weeks totally was off their drugs and completely stable, even when a trauma had come into the family. So it's a very fast and potent healing that happens. I've had people come to me and say, since I've been sun gazing, used to be my friends hated being around me, and now they're like, I've changed, I'm the most cheerful person, and everyone loves me. And it's just because what's happening is that creates it's all enzymatic, you know, it's like these little connections, right, of this. And so vitamin D, calcium assimilation, all of that stuff. Calcium is like most of our body is made out of calcium molecules. And what happens when you have enough calcium? You feel secure and safe and calm, and your nervous system is fully fed, and you know, you just got what it takes to be, you know, a real whole feeling person. So, you know, it's all about chemistry, you know, the medical science has been studying this sun gazing thing avidly right now because Hira introduced it into that world. They're using it for healing eyes, for healing other diseases, mental illnesses, all kinds of stuff. So it's a very research science right now, how the sun affects us.
Is it Asha?
I'm Asha, yeah.
Asha, hi. I'd like to tell you a saying that the Hopi people taught me, and they said when you learn to stand and face the sun, you will wake up in a hurry. And when you do, you return to the beginning of your true soul's journey to its essence.
Wow.
And that's just exactly what you said.
Wow, I like that. I have to write that one down.
And they teach blind people to perceive light and dark by staring at the sun.
Wow. Nice. That's cool. Thank you. I'll have to get that on an email from you so I can add it to the... So, anybody else? Yeah?
This may seem like a strange question, but I'm just curious to know why the Mayan calendars actually end at 2012.
It's not an end, and that's a misrepresentation. It's actually a completion of a cycle. I have quite a bit of stuff on that I didn't get to in this talk, but I'll try and see if I can go over it briefly if I can find the right paper. Give me 1 second. It has to do with the evolution of the third dimension. And believe it or not, it's been a really huge, long process that we've been going through. It's been millions of years. And so to come to a completion, it's not a small completion. It's a really huge cyclical completion. Now, in the Vedas, 52,000, I don't know if I can find it. I'll try and find it. In the Vedas, there's been a lot of research done about the solar cycles. Here it is. Okay. Here we go. This is from the Mayan calendar. This is research done by Callahan. Dr. Callahan was one of the major Mayan researchers. There was Jose Arguelles, Callahan, and Hunab, who was actually a Mayan himself. And what these guys did was they went to the timekeepers up in the Yucatan. Now, when the Catholic Church went into the Yucatan, and this was like, for some reason, they wanted to destroy a lot of the ancient text, the Library of Alexandria. I think it could have been possibly because people who understood the physics of creation and how to apply it, if they weren't using it in proper ways, could cause some damage. And it's possible that because they were aware that we were going through a down cycle, that they decided they would hide these magic wisdoms, magic, quote unquote. Okay, so I'm just assuming that it was for a good reason. I don't really prescribe to the control freak thing, but all right, well, anyway, we'll go onward. So anyway, these wisdoms are returning, okay, and Hunab went to the Yucatan to extrapolate what he could from these timekeepers. And this is what he came up with. This is a staircase. Now, each one of these is a time spiral, okay? As we go through, okay, the sun, the Earth is revolving around the sun, and the sun is traveling, right? The sun's going this way, so we're actually spiraling as we go through the universe. That's time. If we stayed in one place, we'd be repeating the same thing over and over again. We're talking about the sound light.
We're creating a multi-helix
right.
type body.
Exactly.
Much in the same way that DNA is a double helix.
There you go.
Molecule.
There you go. Okay, so you can see it here, sort of, this spiral, okay? So as it spirals inward into this cycle, we've got 16.4 billion years, and then you go phi ratio smaller for the next age, and you get 840 million years, and then the spiral to the next phi ratio down, and it's 41 million years, and then 2 million years, and then 102,000 years, and then, we've gone through all these steps. Guess where we are now? We are somewhere like way over here at the end of this second step. This last step begins February 2011. It's 260 days long. Judith Lightfeather believes it's complete at May 21st, 2012. There's also another teaching that uses the same date, and it's the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters,
Could you guess that?
yeah, I would love to. The Ascended Masters channel through people and teach about our evolution and talk very much about how we're, they say ascending, but it just means vibrating at a higher frequency, more likened to our true nature, to me. But ascending in that we're moving into a full conscious awareness of existing in that frequency of our natural state, basically. I'm just going to say it like that to make it comfortable, because that's really what it is. So the Ascended Masters say that May 26th of 2012 is also the end of the third world consciousness on the planet, and that we shift at that point to the full body of humanity being activated. And I love that saying. Oh, where is it? Love has forgotten no one, okay? The full body of humanity being activated at a higher frequency. Okay, so just hold that thought that it's an entire humanity, it's a one consciousness, it's one body. I like the body of Christ, whatever you want to call it. It's one, it's us, and all of us together in our unified love field are shifting our awareness as a human race to another level. And no more third world consciousness activities will happen past that. Therefore, no more war, no more da-da-da-da-da, on and on. So, and that's also Judith Lightfeather, my nanotechnologist. She says the exact same thing when she mapped out the calendars, that that's the same transition. So I've heard it from two sources now, the same exact kind of vibration picture, and I just told you what that was. So somebody had a question? Yeah.
What you're saying, I think, is that the Mayan calendar is not suggesting the end of the world, but that the Mayan calendar is a measurement of consciousness, evolution of consciousness, and the shift in consciousness will occur at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the big mistaken belief,
Right.
that it's the end of the world.
Exactly.
In 2012, it's not.
And who knows what's possible when we shift our consciousness, because we are the co-creators, we are the ones projecting onto this alaya the pure potentiality of the divine creation, okay? We're the ones who are taking that pure cosmic intelligence and turning it into a physical universe through our awareness, through our consciousness. So as a humanity, and we start to embrace a higher vibration or a higher frequency, or embrace our true nature, whichever way you want to put it, then we start projecting a different thing. Now, let me tell you a little something. Okay, there were 3 Sufis who sat by the most polluted stretch of the Ganges River. This was a few years back. And their goal was to sit and meditate and clean up a quarter-mile stretch of the Ganges River. It took them 3 days of deep meditation, and they did accomplish that. So the transformation that can happen when there's a connectivity to source, and what source, let me introduce a word, solution, okay? Soul being the infinite, invisible, unified field. Lu, light, sound light waves coming out. Shun, shining, okay? The solution is coming from the one harmonious cosmic being that knows and embraces all of the divine, all of the physical creation with its divinity, and it's vibrating through every atom of the physical creation. That being understands and knows exactly what solution will harmonize the field. And so I think on that note, are we good? Okay.
So we're all a vortex. We're all vortexes.
Yeah.
People help put the chairs away.
Yeah. Good idea.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax-deductible. This recording is not copyrighted, and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.